So far, our districts have practiced the CDC recommended layers of prevention strategy, which acknowledges that schools are potentially high transmission communities and take steps to mitigate. These 3 layers include a high level of vaccination rate for the community, the ability to maintain a socially distant environment, and the use of high quality, good fitting masks for all people. And with these layers of prevention in place, our schools have remained open, students are learning in person, and our infection rates have been moderate. Unfortunately, our community has been infected by the latest Omicron surge. The district COVID tracker indicates skyrocketing infection rates on all 3 campuses, 10-fold greater than at any other point during the school year. Understand that without all 3 layers of prevention in place, the impact of Omicron would have been dire. It is not the right time to consider removing any of the 3 layers of prevention from our schools. To that end, as was referenced just a moment ago, the Massachusetts Board of Education authored a document stating that schools reaching the 80% vaccination threshold can take steps to remove the mask mandate. Data for our district has not been made available, but the CDC reports as of yesterday that our county is at 71.4%. This means we've not met the threshold to remove masks. Additionally, all 3 of our campuses house preschools. Students still ineligible to receive the vaccine, not likely to be vaccinated until after the school year ends. So while our county may be at 71.4%, our district community, taking into account our preschoolers, is not there yet. We have a ways to go. That means that until we have a verified 80% vaccination rate in our district, masking is the only layer of prevention that we, the community, can control, can offer as safety for our children, for our staff, and our faculty. On a personal note, we pulled my oldest from preschool, like a lot of you, when this whole thing started. We elected to homeschool his kindergarten year, and halfway through he said, "Mommy, I just want to go to school with friends that are not my brother, with a teacher who's not my mommy." And then we moved to Berlin. So my son was taken without warning from his preschool, gamely managed an isolated year of kindergarten, and then was moved to a whole new place. Now, this is making me cry. He's thriving. He skips to the bus every morning because of the independence he feels at school, because of the learning opportunity of being in community with others. The idea that school would shut down again because of infection rates climbing, when we know how to control it, it's just too heartbreaking to imagine. And let's be honest, without the mask mandate, that's what's likely to happen. Teachers and staff will get sick, there won't be people to run schools, let alone healthy children ready to learn. The mask is our first and best effort to control the spread of infection. It is what's allowed us to keep our kids in school so far, even during the recent surge. Now we must continue to mandate the mask to keep everyone protected, to keep our students learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Brian Connor? We just, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that because people at home want to hear. I don't know.
Can someone ask if people can hear Lori at home?
I'm working on it as best I can. I've had audio and video issues this entire time. I think I might have fixed it. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. Thank you, Sebastian. Just a reminder to state your name and your address.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
It's Brian Connor, 36 Longleaf Road in Boylston. The past 2 years have been challenging for all of us. For my family, we felt lucky. Our kids were barely 3 and 1 when this started. Surely the madness would be over by the time they were to head to school, or so we thought. I watched as masking became a way of virtue signaling. Profile pictures changed to mask photos, and worse, people seemed excited to share pictures of their kids in masks. Early on, I began to realize masks would not go away so easily. I was assured, though, once there is a vaccine, the kids will no longer need masks. After all, they were wearing them to protect the elderly. Vaccines came, Massachusetts led the way with one of the highest rates in the country. Okay, the end is in sight. But wait, the kids aren't eligible. The goalpost moved a little further. Now kids are eligible. But wait, let's get to 80%, and then maybe we can drop the mandate. Let's think about why the mandate started. Masks were a small layer of protection when there was no other options. But today, every parent here has the option to fully vaccinate their child. Equip them with an N95 mask to protect them against the virus that has a 0% fatality rate in healthy children. With that information in hand, do we as rational adults say, no, that's not enough. I still don't feel safe bringing my child to school. However, if we mandate your child to wear a cotton Spider-Man mask, which the CDC has admitted provides virtually no protection, then now, and only now, is my child safe. That type of thinking is irrational and rooted in fear. The time to end the mandate is now. Kids are resilient, I agree. They are, however, not indestructible. Masks affect kids. I saw this firsthand while coaching T-ball when 4 and 5-year-olds were forced to wear masks outside on warm summer days. We were following science. The practices felt robotic. The kids weren't connecting. Communication with the kids was a constant challenge. Halfway through the season, the outdoor mandate was dropped. Not one kid showed up to the next practice with a mask on. The atmosphere changed, kids connected, and as a coach, I could easily talk to the kids. The difference was night and day. Masking kids is a science experiment, a failed one. There is zero evidence these measures even slow the spread, but there is growing evidence of the negative effects. British psychologist Albert Moravian, founder of the 93-7 rule, states that 7% of meaning is communicated through the spoken word, 38% through tone, and 55% through facial expression and body language. When you cover a child and teacher's face, how much of that communication is lost? For the past 2 years, we've made a lot of mistakes, and our kids usually brunt the worst of it. We closed parks, removed basketball hoops, isolated kids, told them not to high-five or hug their friends. The time has come to give kids the childhood they deserve. For 2 years, we've been told to be patient, follow the science. Now the science is clear. Unmask the kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Lisa Mayer, if I pronounced that correctly.
Thanks so much for letting me speak. My name is Lisa Mayer and I live at 31 Ball Hill Road in Berlin. I have a master's degree in food science and nutrition and also a certification in functional medicine. For years, I worked in laboratories, and today I read medical research daily as part of the work that I do. And I've spent probably over 100 hours reading the mask research, and I'm convinced that if more people would read the actual research instead of, filtering it through the media, nobody would be wearing a mask. There is a hierarchy of quality of scientific evidence, and the highest quality of evidence includes meta-analyses and randomized controlled trials and systematic reviews. The lowest quality of evidence includes laboratory experiments, mechanistic studies, reports, and editorials. The highest quality of evidence does not support community masking at all. Remembering that the meta-analysis is the highest form of evidence, in 2020 alone, there were 6 meta-analyses and systematic reviews that found masks are ineffective for respiratory viruses. And also there was a large randomized control trial, which is that, second top tier of quality of data. They found no difference in SARS-CoV-2 infection among thousands of participants that wore masks versus ones that didn't wear masks. Now, I'm not sure why, but public health authorities have ignored this high quality evidence and for some reason chose to focus on the lower quality evidence, like case studies with incomplete data, mechanistic studies, and flawed lab experiments. And then the editorials that like reported on them that also got widely publicized. So like everybody just believed that masks worked, but not realizing this was low quality evidence. Now, to be clear, masks do stop large droplets, the ones that you can see. But SARS-CoV-2 is not spread by large droplets. We know that it is spread by tiny aerosols that go through your mask and that go around the edges of your mask. And research does show that masks simply redirect airflow and that they even create hazardous leakage jets out the sides and around the back of the mask. And I have citations for all of these statements that I'm making, and if anybody else wants them, I'll give you that too. And you don't even need to see the citations because you've seen the evidence of this yourself. When your glasses fog up, when you wear a mask with your glasses, or if you go outside in the freezing cold and you can see your breath everywhere. That is happening whether or not you can see it. It's happening in classrooms, it's happening in here right now. All of us are emitting our aerosols and we're all breathing the same air. So it really does not work. And on top of that, the cloth masks have been shown to increase rates of respiratory illness. So not only do they not work, we know that, they redirect airflow, but then people tend to get sicker when they wear them. Now, N95 masks, in theory, might seem better because they have a smaller pore size, but still, that pore size is larger than the SARS-CoV-2 aerosol. And they can create a better seal to eliminate those leakage jets, right? But there's reality to consider. The Code of Federal Regulations stipulates that people need to be medically cleared to wear an N95. It needs to be professionally fit tested, and the people need to be trained in proper use. Is that going to happen in schools or in the community? I don't think so. Also, if you wear them an N95 improperly, you risk actual sickness and death. And 3M has that on the boxes of their N95 masks. Most research has shown that most people will not wear an N95 correctly, and just a tiny 3% gap out of the edge, like of the seal of your face, renders them ineffective. So zero efficacy if there's a gap. Now, people who do wear them correctly have issues. Healthcare workers complain of headaches, migraines, fatigue, brain fog, and they, also like facial issues, like skin issues and things. But none of this is a good, condition to be in if you're trying to learn. So in terms of the real world evidence, an N95 mask mandate in Bavaria failed to prevent a huge spike in cases, and everybody was wearing them there outside and inside. And you can see it, there's a graph there that you can look at. Now, on a happier note, in Sweden, I'm almost done. Okay. Okay. All right. In Sweden, they never took kids out of school. They went to in-person school through the height of the pandemic, and they did not wear masks, and they didn't really social distance. Not one kid out of 2 million kids died. There were a couple that were hospitalized. They had just a handful, and they had severe other comorbidities. And then there have been recent analyses in schools, one from the UK and one from Florida, that showed that there's no relationship between mask mandates and infection rates. So in summary, abundant high-quality evidence demonstrates that masks don't work for respiratory viruses that spread by aerosols. The evidence to support masks is not policy grade, and nobody should be forced to wear a mask based on low quality of evidence. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Next, we have Kevin Haglin.
Good evening. Kevin Haglin, 5 Mill Road, Boylston. I have 2 daughters, first grade and fourth grade, Boylston Elementary. I have a whole list, like some other people here, that I was going to read out about all different facts and stats and everything like that. I'll save the time for that. We're going to find one professional that says, you know, we need to wear the mask for all these other reasons. We're going to have another professional that's going to say the same thing, the opposite side, that we don't need to or do need to. I'll just tell you how it is with my kids. My kids are struggling with the masks. My youngest daughter is having a real hard time learning how to read, being able to follow the teacher and learning in first grade. My fourth grade daughter is having a similar problem. But kids are just having I feel that my kids are just having some social issues, being able to connect with other kids, reading facial expressions. I just think that it's time to remove the masks. The vaccines are out there if the people want to get them. There's masks out there that the children, staff can wear if they choose. And that's their choice. Go for it. Wear the mask, get the vaccines. I think it just should be every person's choice. And I think we need to remove the mask mandate. Thank you.
Kevin? Oh, thank you. Marie Phillips?
Marie Phillips, Haywood Street in Boylston. Dear school committee members and Superintendent Zangi, thank you for the opportunity to share my experiences regarding masking children. I'm a public school teacher and I have been teaching in person since August 2020. Therefore, I have had approximately 15 months of experience around children wearing masks. First and foremost, if masks are not worn correctly, they are ineffective. Correct wearing of masks, according to the WHO, are as follows. Before putting on a mask, clean your hands with soap and water. Cover your mouth and nose with the mask and make sure there are no gaps between your face and the mask. Avoid touching the mask while using it. If you have to, try to clean your hands with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water before doing so. Replace the mask with a new one as soon as it is damp. Do not reuse single-use masks. To take the mask off, remove it from behind. Do not touch the front of the mask. Discard it immediately in a closed bin and clean your hands with alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. Are students and staff following these guidelines? If not, then perhaps masking is causing more harm than good. Where are students placing their masks during recess, lunch, or mask breaks? Are masks being placed in a sterile area so they are clean and not full of bacteria that they are introducing to their face and lungs when putting them back on? How many outdoor mask breaks are students provided throughout the 6.5-hour day, especially now in the cold weather? Every student should be given multiple opportunities to breathe fresh air without a mask. I am very concerned with how masks are affecting early childhood students as a first grade teacher. Regarding auditory processing, speech delays, and phonological awareness, I am especially concerned for children with hearing loss as they rely on lip movements and facial expressions. And clear masks cause an increase in sound degradation. I'm curious to see if there's an increase in special education and or RTI support for students in this district with speech and language delays. Our student athletes are suffering from headaches, fatigue, nausea. I challenge any one of you to play basketball for 5 minutes with a mask on your face. The athletes are pulling them down over their noses because they can't breathe. They're pulling the masks down. And if they're pulling the masks down, how are the masks effective? There is an inconsistency with the enforcement of mask wearing, which also lessens their effectiveness. The Massachusetts governor's office sent a letter to colleges and universities presidents yesterday, urging them to end the campus mandates and restrictions. The letter darkly warns administrators about a twindemic of COVID plus social isolation and decries the mental health epidemic affecting our young people. The letter encourages higher education institutions to be leaders, to lead the shift back to near normal by rolling back college restrictions and investing in mental health services. And they're talking about almost all restrictions and testings. The letter says, early in the pandemic, we made trade-offs and veered on the side of remote learning and isolation. Overly strict protocols that inhibit any level of social interaction are counterproductive at this time. Now is the time to reconsider these protocols, help promote a return to healthy social interactions, including by removing remote learning, restricting or discouraging social group activities, overly aggressive surveillance testing, and mask type requirements. I am urging you to lead the way in Massachusetts public schools and lift the mask mandate. It is questionable how effective they are against the spread of viruses. They may actually open up more opportunities for unsanitary conditions, and they are having a negative impact on the developmental, physical, and mental health of our students.
Great. I would like to call Stephanie Fair.
Hello, just the distance. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Stephanie Fair. I live on Summer Road in Berlin. We all know that these last couple years have been trying ones. There's so much information going in all directions, it can be hard to tell what is trustworthy. So today I'm just focusing on facts. And I did email a copy of this with all the graphs and studies and everything, and I'm sure some of them have already been mentioned. I will say some may desire that mask wearing be dependent on vaccination levels in the community, as has been mentioned in various places. But we need to consider the vaccines are no longer claimed or intended to stop the spread of COVID for the CDC, only to lessen symptoms. Since this is the case, consideration of mask wearing should be made solely on the merits or lack thereof of mask wearing itself. The Delta wave rose and fell across the US and the globe in a similar pattern. Masking was irrelevant to that cycle. A comparison was done of European countries as well as US states, pinpointing when each government began mask mandates. It found that mask wearing seemed to have no effect on the spread of the virus. For example, in Sweden, where they have never mandated masks, their death rate is significantly lower. A 2020 study by the New England Journal of Medicine concluded, we know that wearing a mask outside healthcare facilities offers little, if any, protection from infection. The desire for widespread masking is a reflexive reaction to anxiety over the pandemic. At a Danish randomized controlled trial with 6,000 participants, found no statistically significant effect of high-quality medical masks against SARS-CoV-2 in a community setting. There are many more studies, some of which I've included in my letter. Even UNICEF, which is pro-mask in general, strongly advises against kids under 5 wearing masks and recommends mask wearing for children 6 to 11 only in certain settings. They also caution the potential impact of mask wearing on an individual child's learning and psychological development should be considered. In the UK, even during the Delta wave, their elementary schools were open without masks. A pediatric infectious disease specialist working in London, who has worked on their governing policy, said the UK has always, from the beginning, emphasized they do not see a place for face coverings for children if it's avoidable. The potential harms exceed the potential benefits, and their strategy has worked, with the UK just this month being able to drop their COVID restrictions, including masking. Globally, the tide is starting to turn, and a growing list of nations have begun dropping mask wearing and all COVID restrictions, which include the UK, Ireland, France, the Netherlands. Denmark's prime minister announced COVID-19 should no longer be categorized as a socially critical sickness. The WHO says that Europe may soon be able to end their emergency phase due to Omicron being a much milder variant, and that we need to evaluate the evolution of COVID from pandemic to endemic illness. Recently, during the OSHA hearing, Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor claimed false information, saying 100,000 children are currently hospitalized with COVID, when in fact that number was under 3,500. If even a Supreme Court justice can be deceived by false information, we should all be looking carefully at our own beliefs to make sure that our fears are based on fact. We in the US, and especially Massachusetts, which prides itself on being at the forefront scientifically, should not be lagging behind when it comes to what we're demanding of our children. I'm strongly against requiring masks in schools. It has never made sense for adults to be able to shop, attend shows, eat in restaurants, or go to sports games without a mask, while children are forced to mask entire days in school. And it's time to speak up for our kids and let them return to regular life. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Tina Shanko?
Hi, thank you. My name is Tina Shanko. I live at 66 Ethan Allen Drive in Boylston, and I'm terrified, so we'll just start by saying that. I've been a Boylston resident for over 20 years. I have 4 children, 3 are graduates of Tohoto, and my last is currently a junior. I'm a registered nurse, and my husband is a surgeon. I would like to voice my concerns over masking our children in school. It is time to stop wearing masks, or at the very least, eliminating the mask mandate. Our children are suffering the effects of masking for long hours each day. The science is clear. Healthy children are at an exceedingly low risk for death or serious illness from COVID-19. In fact, there are more than 150 comparative studies and articles that give evidence that masks do not work to control the virus, and they may even be harmful. When dealing with an airborne illness or disease, these cloth and surgical masks are not the masks you should wear to protect yourself. Even N95s are not fully rated to protect against viruses and are not approved to do so by the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. The first clinical studies done during the SARS outbreak showed that not only were these masks hazardous to human health, they worked almost 0% of the time because of moisture, liquid diffusion, and pathogen retention. There's also a possibility of creating long-term health effects when you deprive the body of oxygen for long periods of time. The director of OSHA has actually said using surgical masks as a form of personal protection equipment may lead to adverse health effects. Not only are they potentially creating physical harm to our children, we know there are psychological harms as well. Children need to see faces. It is an important part of social learning and communication. Humans communicate verbally and non-verbally, and masks impede both forms. Masks muffle and distort our words, making understanding and learning from their teachers even more difficult. Our facial expressions are important cues to everyone around us. Without those cues, communication and understanding suffer. We have the responsibility to reject these ever-changing narratives regarding masking and their effectiveness at stopping the spread of COVID-19. The story has changed from masks don't work, to masks may work, to masks work and you must wear one. No, 2 is better. The UK has sensibly ended the mask mandates. The British Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, stated, "We must learn to live with COVID in the same way we live with the flu." Risk is inevitable and heavily subjective, dependent upon age and comorbidity. Nobody has the right to force a medical intervention, such as a mask, onto another. We know how to coexist with other bacteria and viruses, and we will learn how to coexist with COVID as well. The goal isn't to eliminate COVID, that would be impossible, but rather, let's teach the students about the importance of living a healthy lifestyle by building a healthy immune system through diet, exercise, and sunlight. This is the best frontline defense amongst communicable disease. I strongly urge the board to make masks optional for students and their teachers, with an emphasis on personal choice regarding self-protection and supporting those choices, whether it be to remain masked or not. I believe in parental rights. Parents know their children best and what is best for them. Let us decide whether our children will benefit or suffer from masking. Our children have sacrificed a lot since the onset of COVID. It is now time to give them their childhood back. Let them see our faces and breathe the fresh air. And I just end with, a smile is more contagious than COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. James Frangillo?
Good afternoon. My name is James Virgila. I live at 676 Cross Street in Boylston. I come here today with a lot of notes, and I'm going to try to stick to these because I can veer off pretty quickly. So I just want to start off by just a few facts, right? These are not debatable, these are not opinion, facts, right? COVID-19 virus is a respiratory illness. The virus is transmitted through respiratory droplets. The particle size of the COVID-19 virus is 0.1 in diameter. It's widely known that cloth masks do not filter particles of this size. Masks must be worn properly to provide protection. Once a mask gets wet, the effectiveness is decreased by 50% or more, right? Now, these are my experiences. I have 4 children, 1 at Assabet, 3 in Boylston Elementary. I coach football, basketball, soccer. I teach other extracurricular activities. On a daily basis, I see many children, 10, 20, 30, 40 children. At least half of these children are not wearing a mask properly. And by properly, that is firmly over the bridge of the nose to under the chin. That is the actual definition. The rest, they either have the mask pulled down or they're chewing on the mask. My own son, my 5-year-old, chews on his mask. It's the most disgusting thing. It drives me crazy. The reusable masks, they're full of saliva, full of food, kids draw on them, they're touching them all day, they have holes in them for being chewed on. These are not protective, all right? Even disposable masks, as an adult, wearing that for 8 hours over the course of a day, it's gross. Based on the facts that I previously stated and these use cases that I've highlighted, I hope you can understand why I don't believe masks are protective and why parents should have a choice. My recommendation, as I stated, I coach year-round sports and extracurricular activities. I believe that our best defense is not a mask. It is rather social interaction through sports, through activity. That's cardiovascular activity, which expands lung capacity, strengthens the heart. Masks actually make it harder for kids to perform these exercises, perform these activities. It's actually very counterintuitive. I've said this to my wife many times, and it breaks my heart when I see kids practicing and I see them gasping for air, going through practice in the middle of a game. I see them pulling them down, just trying to catch their breath in between plays. It's really an awful feeling as a coach, as a parent, knowing that we should have the choice, that they should have the choice, especially for outdoor sports. I'm not sure if the school committee is aware of this, but as the president of Boylston Youth Soccer, we base our COVID response off of that of the school. There is a trickle-down effect, not just on the school, but outdoor extracurricular activities, sports within the town themselves. I would love to see the mask mandates lifted, and I would love to have a sports season this spring with parents being able to choose if their children wear masks or not. Most importantly, I think, as others have touched on, are the mental risks of masks. This is just my personal experience that I base this off of. But early, when I dropped my kids off at school in the morning, I would see Mrs. Sullivan, I would see Mr. Thompson, I would see other teachers, we would wave, we would smile. That small interaction, that kind gesture could change my entire day. And I know that I'm not alone in that. I know that my kids would thoroughly appreciate those interactions also. I'll just skip that part. My point is that by covering the lower half of everyone's face, we greatly reduce the ability to communicate, interpret, or mimic expressions of the people we come in contact with. Positive emotions become less recognizable and negative emotions are amplified. This is not healthy for our young children. There are 3 types of learners. There are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. The most prominent are visual learners, which make up more than 60% of all learners. These children rely, these visual learners, they rely on body language and facial expressions of their teacher to process information. By masking our children, this is not conducive for visual learners, and it actually impedes their ability to learn within the classroom. My ask of the board is that that you do not do what is easy, but instead you do what is right. We have enforced restrictions on our kids for the safety of adults for too long. Our kids deserve better than this. I ask that you end the mandate and give parents the freedom to choose what is right for their individual children.
Thank you, James. Ornella Quinn.
Hi, so thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Ornella Quinn. I live in Berlin, and I'm the mother of 2 boys that were in the school district for about 15 years. Currently, I work as a public health advocate, primarily with youth substance use and prevention. So as we've heard tonight, time and time again, the data is clear that school-age children have the least amount of risk when it comes to becoming seriously ill or dying from coronavirus of almost any other group. So thankfully, vaccines and other therapeutics are available and have helped mitigate the impacts to the more at-risk groups such as school staff and faculty. We have many more tools in 2022 than we had in 2020. And our school policies should shift to really reflect these advances. Since there have been some notable risks associated with children wearing masks 8 to 10 hours a day, the decision to wear them or not really should be a personal choice. In fact, the WHO advises several factors in determining whether or not these children ages 6 to 11 should wear masks at all. And they include 1, the potential impact of wearing a mask on learning and psychological development, and 2, the ability for a child to safely and appropriately wear a mask. So if there is an at-risk child, they should most certainly have that choice to wear a mask. But this choice shouldn't be a requirement for everyone else, especially when that choice has a potential negative outcome on both learning and mental health. So 3 very prominent infectious disease specialists, epidemiologists and professors at Boston Medical Center, Tufts University Medical School, and the Harvard Medical School have recently co-authored an essay that was published in the Washington Post calling for schools to make masking optional. They write, quote, "In the beginning, this was to flatten the curve, and then later to protect the vulnerable, intended to be a short-term intervention. If we accept that we don't want masks to be required for our schools forever, then we need to decide, when is it the right time to stop these mandates? As the Omicron wave begins to ebb, that time is now. Our students have been made to feel like they are disease vectors, while failing to recognize that they also are growing children in need of social interaction for proper development. There is a youth mental health crisis in this country, yet punitive actions that limit social interaction and normal life continue. School should be a place for children to feel safe and supported. Aaron Bromage, a professor of biology at UMass Dartmouth, who's worked with both governors of Rhode Island and Massachusetts in an effort to reopen the schools, does advocate for COVID mitigations, but now believes that the minimal reduction in risk that comes from masks is being outweighed by the detrimental side effects that comes from wearing them. The Omicron wave will soon be behind us. I urge you to educate our community on personal choice regarding self-protection and support those who want to remain masked. It's time that our school staff is allowed to get back to teaching and supporting our students. It's time we stop worrying about what others are doing and start focusing on protecting ourselves. Our children have sacrificed a lot to protect us. Now it's time for us to give them back their childhood. With all that we know about mental health, the new Omicron virus, and the effectiveness of masks, We should no longer require a mask mandate for our children in school. Thank you.
Ornella. Natalie Adams.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for letting me speak tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Natalie Adams, and I'm a middle school English language arts teacher at Tohoto. When I began my tenure in 1999, a long time ago, I was immediately struck by the safe environment that we afforded students. There was an overwhelming feeling that everyone was working together to provide a safe, nurturing environment for them. As I began to spend time at the elementary schools, I felt the same way. A student needs a safe environment to learn successfully. Anything less can seriously impede a student's ability to be successful, even if that student has the drive to do so. The challenges that all of us have faced in education since COVID began have been significant. No one could have ever imagined a world where we would need to put in place the practices and protocols that we have. Furthermore, the times we're living in have put a new meaning into the word safety. I know that people have different opinions on masking. Believe me, I dream of a day when it is no longer necessary, but now is not that time. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is the governing body for public schools in the Commonwealth, and they currently have a mask mandate in place that the district is bound to follow. Officials at the department have stated that the current mask mandate will be reviewed on February 28th. I feel it's in the district's best interest to wait until this review to make any decisions on the mask mandate in our district. DESE has public health experts that collaborate with their leaders in order to make the safest decisions possible for students and staff. New testing protocols are rolling out currently, and time needs to be taken to see how that goes. Second, we risk a serious public relations crisis. Do we really want to look like a district that is not acting in the best interest of students and staff? Do we want others to perceive us as not caring about the safety of others? I know that is not the case in reality, but removing this mandate could give that perception. Third, many students come in contact with upwards of 90 students on a daily basis, making exposure a significant issue if there is no mask mandate. Now more than ever, we need to do everything we can to keep our students secure, to keep them learning, to make them feel that we are a safe space. Let's continue that safe environment that told me that this was the place where I wanted to spend my teaching career. Let's show the students and staff that we care about their well-being in addition to giving parents peace of mind. Let's make a decision that will benefit all students and staff instead of creating an atmosphere of anxiety and fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Tara Kozak.
Good evening. On behalf of the Berlin-Boylston Educators Association, I'd like to thank everyone for taking part in this evening's discussion. I'd also like to recite the latest requirement pertaining to mask wearing set forth by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which was updated on January 10th. It states the mask requirement remains an important measure to keep students safe in school at this time. Consistent with the authority provided by the board, and after consulting with medical experts and state health officials, the Commissioner is extending the mask requirement through February 28th, 2022. The department will continue to work with medical experts and state health officials to evaluate the mask requirement beyond February 28th. A survey was conducted among our membership, and the majority of the respondents are not comfortable at this time unmasking in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. We're going to check the other list. Is there anyone here that wanted to speak that did not sign up? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to review the district's mask policy. We have a second? We're going to organize the microphones. Okay, so we're going to also open it up for the board to discuss between ourselves. And I'd just like to remind you at this point, this is when the board talks to one another, and it's going to be tempting to add something in, but per open meeting law, it's just the board having the discussion. And we appreciate everybody that stood up and read tonight. As I said, it takes courage and conviction, and it was a really brave thing to do. So I appreciate everybody, no matter how you feel about masks. I want you to know that your message reaches us. Would any members like to make a comment or anything about, before we start the discussion, about how they voted or why they voted? I didn't know if anybody wanted to discuss that. You don't need to.
Do you want me to go first since I have the mic and we can pass it? Okay, so Laurie, do you want us to talk about why we voted last week the way we did? Yeah. So last week, I was the only one who's currently present now that voted to not have this meeting. I am in favor of sticking with the DESE mandate. Our administrators, our teachers are all licensed under DESE, which is the Department of Education for the state of Massachusetts. Us as a school committee, we're required to follow state mandates or, attempt to uphold state mandates. And, regardless of how I feel about masks, I think the right thing to do right now is to stick with the mandate. When the mandate is dropped and we can discuss it at the local level, these comments were great. And I'm definitely gonna keep everyone's comments. And I think we've got at least 20, 25 emails, right, in mind. But I just don't believe that this is the time to do that. I think we need to, for the sake of the teachers and the administrators and the district, quite honestly, we don't want to open ourselves up to any type of litigation. I think we need to stick with whatever DESE is mandating. So do you want me to talk about my feelings on masks, or do you want to? It's up to whatever you guys think.
If you would like to, you have the floor.
Okay, yeah, might as well say everything and then we can pass it that way. Because it'll be hard to debate without the microphones. I feel famous. So as far as the masking goes, I honestly, before this meeting and I should say before this week, I was dead set on, masks are mandated. They need to be mandated. I think some of the people tonight brought some excellent points as for why masks need to be optional. In specific, we got an email from somebody who suggested, and I don't know if we're supposed to say who, but somebody suggested, perhaps having mask mandates moving forward during surges and then dropping them when cases, drop below a certain amount. Some of these ideas are great. I just don't know when or at what point I would feel comfortable with dropping masks. For me, I'm thinking about everyone in the community, the teachers, the students, the special needs students that may not be able to wear masks to school every day. So it's really difficult. And then when you throw in the mental health piece, there's no way we're going to be able to please everybody. But I think right now, I'm not comfortable, even if DESE didn't have a mandate right now with the amount of cases and the levels of the hospitals and based on what the teachers have said, I'm not comfortable with removing a mask mandate right now.
So Lori, my concerns on this mask issue. First of all, for everyone here, thank you for coming and giving us your opinion. I learned some things tonight that I did not know on both sides of the issue, so thank you. When I think of the mask issue, I think of it through the lens of equity. At our January 11th meeting, we learned, or we were told, that some of our population, specifically the English learners, some of you tonight spoke about how language skills are being lost or not coming along as fast as they could be because of the facial awareness and visual learners and that issue. I want you to imagine that you're a foreign student and you come to this new school and you don't speak the language, you're trying to learn English, you're 7 years old, you're sitting in a class, everyone's face is masked up, and you don't know what your teacher is saying in your own, she's not speaking your own language, you're trying to learn the new language, and you're trying to read in that language with a mask on, unable to see those facial cues. In our district, the number of English learners we learned a couple weeks ago has grown 625% over the last few years. So to me, those kids struggling already with masks, throw on top of that, you don't speak the language, you're sitting in class trying to listen to Charlie Brown's teachers or parents. It's gotta be difficult. I don't think that's equity. We also learned that 17% of students in our district, that's almost 1 in 6 kids, I believe, if the math is correct there, are what they termed economically disadvantaged, which means maybe they don't have all the necessary resources at home that other kids might have at home. That concerns me. I have a first grader at BMS, and she comes home with her anxiety over reading, not being able to read, not learning how to read. She doesn't like the mask issue. She doesn't like having to wear a mask. She doesn't like it, just can't see her teacher. But I'm not worried about her because we have the resources to get her the extra help we need. We can pay for the tutors, we can pay for the extra care. Last year during remote school, a lot of people had to pay a lot of extra money for this extra help for their kids. That's still going on. So I'm not concerned about her. She's got the iPads. She's got the different games that she can play, the educational games. I'm sure she'll be just fine. I'm concerned about, you mentioned we need to consider all students. That's equity, right? All students. How do we help these? I know the school is offering additional resources for both these groups, but are they able to take advantage of it? I don't know. I would like to know more information about that aspect of the situation, the learning loss, how are things going along? We have the Ames web scores, we have MCAS testing, but that's all official data. How is it just going in real life? How is your kid's school going? That's what I would like to know. That's my comment for that. I don't know what we do tonight. I don't know if we do anything or what we do tonight. When it comes to that point, I might have a couple of suggestions, but another parent that spoke that struck me, an email that we received, I believe she spoke tonight too. Her daughter is being afraid or fears just taking her mask down for a second just to catch her breath, take care of her allergies, pick the cotton out of her mouth, whatever it happens to be, because it's been drilled into them now, this culture of fear over the punishment of not wearing a mask. They've been threatened with detention, whatever that punishment is. I don't know what the official punishment is for not wearing a mask in school. I'd like to know that, and perhaps that's something we can change through policy tonight.
Jeff, do you know what as to Mike's question, what the current disciplinary action is for students who don't follow the mask mandate?
I think it's a progressive. Well, we use progressive discipline for any infraction in the school. So as to what the exact punishment would be, I don't know.
So thank you for everyone who attended this evening and who spoke tonight. It is helpful to hear from everyone who's willing to do so, and I think it informs our decision-making. I do feel that the time is now to be talking about this, although I don't feel the time to change anything is tonight, because there are 15 school days between now and February 28th when we expect DESE is going to either extend or change their mask policy. However, if we just sit here and don't talk about it until then, we're stuck in a very difficult position then to collect the feedback we've gotten this evening. So once again, thank you for everyone who's shared emails and spoken tonight. It's very helpful as we move forward. Two other points I just want to make as I listened this evening. I listened specifically for anyone who advocates masks to claim that the disease itself is severe enough in children to be worth mitigating in the first place. Because I ask myself 3 questions when it comes to the mask requirement. First question is the virus itself causing significant illness in school-aged children? Then I ask, does masking students reduce transmission in the schools? And the third question I have is, does vaccinating students reduce transmission in the schools? And that brings me to questions on the vaccination threshold. At the time when we were given an off-ramp, if a school reached 80% vaccination, we had an expectation that vaccination would prevent transmission. I think we can see very clearly now from the data that vaccination does not prevent the transmission of Omicron. So I would even hesitate to remove the vaccination threshold at Tohoto if we weren't also able to do it at the same time at BES and BMS, because the vaccination itself has not shown to prevent transmission to an extent that that should be the off-ramp. So I'm going to have, I think, some more questions on that topic as we move forward. And the last thing I just want to point out, there's a mental health crisis, and someone mentioned, I think spoke to the letter that the Secretary of Education wrote yesterday urging the higher ed community to lead the way towards a return to normal when it comes to this. I sit here and I went to WPI. There have been seven suicides at WPI in the last 6 months. The day after the 7th suicide, WPI removed all requirements to mitigate COVID-19. And so that tells me that there's a recognition at that institution that there is not, the benefit doesn't outweigh the risk when you look at 7 college students who have killed themselves in the last 6 months. This is an institution that in the decade beforehand had 2 suicides. So the only difference is COVID in the way we're managing it. Now, I'll leave it at that as we continue to consider these issues.
Thank you. I'm going to read what I wrote just so I too stay on track. So I'll be quick. I first wanted to thank everyone who spoke tonight for your really thoughtful and meaningful comments. I also wanted to thank everyone who wrote into the committee for their really relevant and tactful comments. Social connection is fundamental to humans. This is something we all know to be true without having to dig for any data or research to confirm it. Social connectedness enhances mental well-being. When COVID was a deadly virus, we all faithfully masked up and did our part to protect ourselves and our neighbors. We didn't hesitate. The COVID of today is not the COVID of a year ago. We are no longer facing a deadly virus. And as Ornilla explained, the landscape has changed, and we too must change the vehicle we use to drive on that landscape. By continuing to mask our children through a mandate, our children are losing that social connectedness, which in turn is having a grave impact on mental health. I even hesitate to read this because it's so staggering. In the first 3 quarters of 2021, in 38 children's hospitals in the nation, the number of suicide and self-harm cases was 47% higher in 5 to 8-year-olds, and 182% higher in 9 to 12-year-olds than from the previous period. These are our babies. They're my babies. They're your babies. All kids need to socially connect with their peers, with their teachers, with their administrators, with their lunch aides, with their coaches, with their bus drivers, with everyone they interact with on a school day. They cannot do that with the masks on. It is our time to lead, and to lead correctly for our children. We owe it to our children to give them the connection they need to help them reach their full achievement potential as a student in the Berlin-Boylston Regional School District.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate all of your comments. I think everything that needs to be said has been said. I just wanted to speak for just a few seconds to say that we all have opinions about masks. And as school committee members, we represent what is best for the children. Our mission that we took an oath to fulfill says to support and challenge all students to achieve personal and academic excellence in a student-centered environment. We called into question whether or not academics we're being hindered by masks. This has nothing to do with how I feel about masks, how anyone on this committee feels about masks. It has to do with the children and their academics. And lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about the letter that we were going to write. We wanted to write a letter. We discussed it last week. We were tired. We'd gone through a governance meeting. We're humans. And I'm not proud of the way the meeting went, and I don't think anybody here is. The intention of the letter, as we discussed on the floor, was a slow rollout of talking about masking. We're coming out of a surge right now. We know how the school committee operates. You can't just show up and make a motion and have it happen. So we wanted to introduce the topic and invite the public and have people come in and talk to us about how they felt. So I apologize for being in this position, but I'm so grateful that you showed up and you read to us and you talked to us and you shared personal experiences. And to all of those people who wrote emails, I tried to write back to everybody, and if there's anyone that I missed, I'll get back to you tonight. But I thanked everyone. Those emails carry impact. I'd like to encourage anybody that has an opinion about this to write to the school committee. We want to hear what you have to say. Those are very important to us. So I just wanted to bring that up, and that's where I'll leave it right now. Does anybody have anything else to say on the board? Yeah, just trying to think of it. Yes. To discuss. Okay, thank you. Which we've done. I apologize, I'm learning on the fly.
So if there's a motion on the table right now to discuss, we moved and seconded it, we moved to discussion. I think we do need to vote on that motion to discuss just to close out that and then consider any additional motions at this point. So my point of order would be that I think we need to have a vote on the motion, which was to discuss. We vote on that and then we can move on to other motions.
Okay, okay. He's great at this. So right now we're going to vote on whether to discuss or review the district's mask policy. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes and we will review the district's mask policy.
So I look at the calendar and I look at what our original intent was, which was to take the time between now and the expiration of the current extension on February 28th to review the mask policy and to potentially send a letter and do things like that. I sit here now on February 1st and I look at our calendar coming up and I wonder if we should be scheduling a meeting for March 1st, which would be the appropriate time to review any change that DESE makes. We do have a meeting scheduled on March 8th, but I'd rather personally do that sooner rather than later. So the 28th is a Monday. Students would come back from February vacation. We'd know at that point what DESE has decided in terms of requiring masks from that point forward. And on March 1st, we could discuss what we might want to do. And hopefully, DESE would give us enough time to consider with the administration the new recommendations they make and whether or not we should be changing anything on our end. So my motion would be to hold a school committee meeting on March 1st, as we would any other school committee meeting, and have this on the agenda. So motion to hold a school committee meeting on March 1st, 2022, with an agenda item to review any update from DESE related to the mask requirement.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Megan. Any discussion?
What I just said.
Does anyone?
I know you're not gonna know the answer to this, Jeff, but is that enough time for Desi to come out on the 28th? And then for us to even have any understanding of, or is that too quick? I mean, it's a day. You don't know.
This mandate extends to the 28th. This mandate extends to the 28th, so we don't know. We expect that at that time there'll be another decision from the department head. So I think it's reasonable.
It could be before. I mean, every single extension seems to have come a week or two before the expiration. I mean, at least that's what it has been. I mean, for the past, how many extensions have we had? I don't know, 3, 4, right?
Thank you, Megan.
But who knows?
Does anyone have anything else to add?
I think one of the things coming into tonight's meeting that I was cautious of was putting any burden on the administration should we have decided to remove the mask mandate tomorrow. And I think we know that there are considerable financial and legal considerations that would come into play if we were to act in defiance to DESE. So as I sit here tonight on February 1st, I'm supportive of giving us another month to hear additional feedback and to understand what DESE might do and be able to be in a position to make some kind of decision on March 1st and to partner and work closely with the administration. From now till then, we do have meetings scheduled for February 8th and the 15th, at which point this could be updated and prepare us for the March 1st meeting.
Anyone else have anything to add?
So we're discussing right now to add this meeting on the 1st. Right. Is there, after hearing from, and there's a lot of passion and emotion in the room right now on both sides. After hearing from that, is there anything else that we might want to do related to mask policy? I believe the district mask policy is simply to follow DC guidance. So DC guidance, as it was laid out, I think someone read it earlier. Everything from when and who to wear a mask, punishment for not wearing a mask. Is there anything we want to do based on what we heard tonight? Talk to DC, ask DC for something else. I don't know. I'd be interested in discussing some sort of action. I don't know if everybody agrees or what they feel that would be.
Sorry, Mike, do you mean action in terms of with DESE or the community?
Either way, is there anything else we want to do? I mean, we heard from a lot of folks here. We don't know what DC is going to do. They say they're going to review it and give another update, right? They've extended it every time for 30 days, 3 or 4 times already. Our letter last week was asking for additional data. Do we want to do something like that? Ask them for something, send them a recording of this meeting, show them what parents want. Parents want more answers. Parents want to know why. Kids are hurting. Mental issues, health. Is there anything we want to do? Do we want to gather up what everybody said here, send it off to them, and be like, listen, if you're going to extend it again, give us some more concrete answers. If you're not going to extend it again, okay, fine, make it optional, and that benefits everyone. I'm just, we're here to discuss changing, not changing, making amendments to the policy. Is there anything we want to do for that?
Mike, I would support something to that effect once this motion is voted on, and whether or not we're going to have a meeting on March 1st to do so. So if a question whether there's any more discussion on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. That one I knew. So everybody's had their chance to speak on this particular topic. I guess we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. We will have a meeting on March 1st in response to what DESE tells us on the 28th with their guidance, and hopefully they come out with it sooner. Does anyone else have another motion that they would like to put forward?
I would like to move that we discuss language to ask DC to watch this meeting and respond to these parents or include some additional information that these parents might be asking in their next announcement regardless of which way they go.
So for Christy, could you
I would
reiterate
like
that?
to move that we discuss sending DC a letter regarding this meeting, parents' opinions, who spoke, who emailed, and now we can discuss that.
Just a point of order for efficiency's sake this evening. Like we move to actually send a letter, and then we will automatically move to discussing what the motion to send.
Seconded. Yes.
I gotta discuss, but I'll just make that up. The motion to send a letter to Beth regarding this meeting, including emails and letters from the committee.
Second.
Okay, I'd like to open the floor to discussion. Does anyone have anything to add regarding that idea? Which is very creative, Mike, I like it.
I mean, I think my idea is clear. I don't know that it's going to do anything or if anything will come of it, but sitting here tonight and doing nothing after hearing these people give up their night to speak to us like this doesn't seem like it would be the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think the original letter we were intending to send to DESE was seeking information on the data that supported their mask mandate. I think that we learned in the interim that other districts have done that and received varying levels of response. And so I think that became somewhat of a moot point at the end of our last meeting. I think that moving to draft and send a letter to DESE potentially as early as the 8th, the meeting next week, where we could review that and then send it off would make a lot of sense. Because we're probably going to need as a group to vote to approve the letter as written too. Should we task the chair with writing that letter?
Wow, that sounds so great.
The vice chair.
You know, Mike, you raised a really interesting idea, which was with the letter to have more impact to send along, letters from the community as well, which I would guess we would need permission to do before we were, those are public record.
Yeah, I was thinking either the emails we received,
Mhm.
A lot of folks had written notes if that was different from their email, if
They could forward
wanted
that.
to share them, or we could simply, the meeting's being recorded, so we could always do that.
Anyone have anything to add?
Just one thing, for the people that sent emails and people that hear, I would say we definitely need to get people's permission, because some people might say, no, I don't want my name on something that's being sent to DESE. That would be the only thing. But I think most people probably would, but I just think to cover ourselves, probably the right thing to do is before we include people's names, just make sure they are okay with it. Oh, okay.
So Christy, because you don't have, she doesn't have a microphone, she has clarified that because once you send an email, which I was not aware until earlier, it does become part of public record. So legally, we have the right to do so. But I would suggest if anybody doesn't want that sent, they should reach out to us prior to, our sending the letter.
Yeah, and I would almost say that we should proactively reach out to those individuals who emailed us, making sure that they're comfortable with us including it in our letter. It's still a public record and someone could request to see that public record, but doesn't necessarily mean we have to send something someone doesn't want us to put out there to DESE.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of one person specifically that said they didn't want their email read, so.
Understandable, it's a good point, Megan.
Maybe to solve this, we could, I'd volunteer to write the letter, Lori, if you're a little busy. Just simply send the recording, send a couple of excerpts from the recording, quotes, whatnot. We can discuss that once it's written. Next week at the meeting.
You can also get the recording transcribed pretty easily and put the recording through a transcription thing that you're able to have everything written out too if you want.
Imagine that technology.
Adam has access to something like that.
Okay.
We can work on it.
Yeah, all right.
Perfect.
So we'll plan to, Mike's gonna draft the letter, we'll plan to discuss it next week and hopefully finalize it so we can get it out the door next week.
Any further discussion? Well, I guess we're going to move on to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. We will, Mike is going to write a letter, and we will be reaching out to people to ask if they would like their letters included. That's something I will take on. So we will be doing that. And does anyone else want to make a motion? Okay, at this time, I would like to tell you that our next meeting is obviously going to be February 8th, where we will discuss the letter. February 15th, we have a budget meeting. And, and I almost forgot February. I'm sorry, that's February 1st today. And March 8th was supposed to be our regular meeting, but we moved to have another meeting on March 8th. I'm sorry, March 1st. So many meetings, yes.
Pretty much every Tuesday except for February break. We'll be here.
We'll be here. So could I have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
The meeting has ended, and thank you. Oh, sorry, we have to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you for coming to our meeting. It is officially ended.